Guys, I am going to give you a really quick rundown of the basics to Photoshop and how you would use this to edit some of your photographs. This is what your screen is going to look like, of course, when you first launch Photoshop. You can start a project in a number of ways. You can do create new, or you can open an image if you like. I'm going to do create new. I'm going to do a custom. Let's call this Ladybug Portrait. That's the name of my dog. Her name is Lady, but I call her Ladybug. And then I'm going to set my my width and my height to 4000 by 4000. Make sure it's on pixels. My resolution is going to be 300. I want to make sure that this is set to 16-bit, not 8-bit. And I've decided that I'm going to have my background be transparent. I'm going to go ahead and click create. And I'm going to make sure that I call my layer over here background. Now I'm going to add a layer by clicking that little plus sign down here. And layer 1 I'm going to call Lady Photo. This is just to help keep me organized, especially if I'm going to add additional text or other things on top of this photo and I don't want it to necessarily be attached to the photo. If I need to delete certain things, I can just easily access them instead of having to mess with my photo. Okay, so here we are. You can import your photo a number of different ways. You can click file and do place embedded, place linked. You can import, or you can just drag and drop. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop this photo of my dog Lady. Here we go. And you can see this is selected. And it changed the name of my layer. I'm going to change that to Lady Photo. There we go. You can adjust the size, the width and the height of the photo, but it needs to stay within this transparent background because you want to make sure that you're staying in that ratio, that 1:1 ratio. And then you can move it around. If you lose these little squares, these little blue marks that allow you to transform your photo, it's called transform, that allows you to resize it, just hit Command T on your computer. Command T when you have the photo selected, hit Command T and it'll give you this little thing again. And then I'm going to hit return and it's going to set my photo for me. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start editing the photos. So what you're going to do is come over here to window and make sure that histogram is selected. You click that histogram, it's going to, it'll bring up your histogram. If you click these little arrows right here, it's going to pop it back into this panel. But if you click that again, it'll allow you to see it. Clicking on this little menu bar here will allow you to see either a compact view of it, an expanded view, or an all channels view. I think the expanded view works for you guys a little bit better. You can also close this if you don't need it. Okay, so I want to keep an eye on my histogram. You can move this, by the way, around wherever you need it. And I'm going to start making some adjustments to my photo. So I'm going to make sure that my Lady Photo layer is selected. And up here, it's automatically selected on properties. What I'm going to go ahead and do is click on the adjustments tab over here. And then it gives you all these different things that you can make adjustments to. Remember, we're doing photojournalism, so you don't want to make a whole bunch of adjustments. The first one is the brightness and contrast. The next one is levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, hue, saturation, color balance, black and white if you want to make your photo black and white, a photo filter, channel mixer. We will never use this photo filter one. Color lookup, invert, posterize, threshold, selective color, gradient map. The ones that we are going to use the most are the same ones that we would use in Lightroom. Exposure, brightness and contrast, maybe a little bit of color, and maybe levels. But I'm going to go ahead and set my exposure first. So that's this plus and minus one, and make sure that my exposure feels like it's in a good place. So here's my little exposure slider. Watch what happens to my histogram. It is adjusting as needed. And watch my photo as it changes. Remember, the whole point is to get your histogram to be as even as you can possibly get it to be. I think that by moving that exposure all the way over, it's way too much, obviously. But you can see over here, this little line is telling me that I'm way overexposed. So I'm gonna keep moving until that line starts to come down. Okay. And then that's all I'm gonna do with exposure. Now I'm gonna go back over to adjustments, and I'm gonna do the next one, which is the brightness and the contrast. You can adjust the brightness and lower it, or you can increase it. You just want to keep an eye on your histogram. If you double click that little slider, it'll take you to 0. It's a little shortcut for you. Again, same thing with the contrast. You can play around with the contrast. If you double click it, my mouse is funny. If you double click it, it should take you back to 0. You can make some adjustments you can do color balance, but I don't really suggest it. Only if you're going to do your shadows or your highlights. What I don't really like about this is you don't really have control over just one slider. It's going to force you to adjust your reds and your cyans and your magentas and everything else. So I'm not a huge fan of doing the color balance adjustments here. But I think if you double click on that little warning sign that it gave me earlier, it'll adjust it for you automatically. Let's see. Let's look at my levels here. See, it's telling me if you click on that little arrow, it's going to adjust everything automatically for you. But then you can go in and change things if you don't like them. That's color balance again. You can change the hue and the saturation. Maybe give it a little bit of warmth. But again, I would keep things as minimal as you possibly can. Let's just say, and look, it's created all these new layers to show you what it's done to your photo. Let's just say I'm finished. I like this photo. I'm going to exit out of that histogram, and this is working for me. I'm going to file, export. And what you want to do is do quick export as PNG. And this is what it's going to give you. You want to save it as a PNG just because it works best with video. However, you can save as a JPEG as well if you would like. You can just go File, Export As, and then change it to a JPEG. So the size is going to be a 1:1. Your format is PNG. It gives you a transparent background, but if you want it to be a JPEG, you can change it to a JPEG. I usually export things as PNG. Your quality can be at 100%, or you can change it to 80. 80 is good enough. 80 is good because that's a good enough quality that it's not as large a file size as it is 100, but it's still there. The difference between quality in 100 versus 80 is not that big of a difference. And then everything else I'm just going to save. I'm going to keep it like that. Everything else is fine. If you want on the metadata, you can do copyright and contact info, which is kind of cool. And then click export. It's going to ask you to save your portrait, Ladybug portrait. save on my desktop, and I'm finished. And then I can exit out of here. It's going to ask you if you want to save this original Photoshop file. It's totally up to you if you want to hang on to it. Maybe you want to go back later and make more adjustments. I'll leave that up to you. For now, for my purposes, I'm going to say don't save. And then there we go. Here is my portrait of my dog Lady. She's adorable. This was with her corona hair. She no longer looks like that. If you guys have any questions or need any additional help, please look at the links that I have posted on D2L and videos that I've posted on D2L. They offer a wide variety of many other little videos that can help you with really specific things on Photoshop.